Ed, can you hear me? Ed? No.
Yeah, I hear you. Do you want me to call in on the voice phone? Would that help? I don't think we have anybody joining. Oh, yeah. Oh, is this good? Do, do you have an echo? Echo, echo, echo. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I know. Well, maybe I don't need to speak a lot. Uh, yes, something testing, testing, testing. Okay. So I just need a sure. Why don't we do that?
Nine ten a.m. on Thursday, November 9th, 2023. I call this meeting of the Westborough Affordable Housing Trust to order. This meeting is being broadcast and recorded by Westborough TV. And pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting will be conducted in person and via remote means in accordance with applicable law. This means that members of the public body as well as members of the public may access this meeting in person or via virtual means. In-person attendance will be here at Memorial Hall and Town Hall, and it is possible that all members of the public body may attend remotely with in-person attendance consisting of members of the public. This meeting may be accessed remotely as noted in the posted agenda. When required by law or allowed by the chair, persons wishing to provide public comment or otherwise participate in the meeting may do so by in-person attendance or by accessing the meeting remotely as noted. Additionally, the meeting is being broadcast live in real time via Verizon Channel 28 and Charter 192, or via Westborough TV's online platforms at westboroughTV.org and youtube.com/WestboroughTV. So thank you all for joining us. We'll get right into our initial business. The first order of business before we get to our guests here is approval of the minutes from our meeting on October 12th, 2023. Did anyone have any questions or comments?
I reviewed and it looks fine to me.
Okay.
Move we approve the minutes, October 23rd.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Roll call vote. Ed?
Bain, yes.
Hank?
Roush, yes.
Kate?
Storm, yes.
And Edinburgh, yes. So meeting minutes are approved 5-0 with 5 being present. Okay, next on our agenda, our discussion of 2 project concepts. We'll start with High Street Extension project and move on to 6 Beach Street. Joining us today are representatives of Waterman Design Associates. If you want to step up to the platform and introduce yourselves to everyone, I can pull
If you
up.
have that sketch, it'd be worth pulling it up.
I'll give you a couple of business cards for both Carolyn and myself. Just
Okay,
Very
great.
good,
Thank you.
thanks.
Then I will.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I can't hear.
Okay, if you can speak in the microphones.
Good morning. Is that better? Can you hear me? All right.
Much better.
All right. Contact. Randy Waterman from WDA Design Group here in Westborough. Carolyn Burke is one of our registered landscape architects, and she worked on the, was it the High Street?
High Street Extension.
Extension one. So we're here, I guess, at your pleasure to address any questions. I know we submitted a couple of concept plans for the High Street Extension. It's interesting property. It's got a little bit of a, I don't know if you can pull those up, but it's got a little bit of a depression at the front of the site, so we tried to look at some options where we could still site and get some reasonable density, site several homes in there, and make it so it's fairly accessible, and maybe use some of the excavation from two of the homes to kind of fill in the low area a little bit. So that's the last plan that we had done. Just trying to think, issue-wise, there is sewer in the street, but I believe with the town's moratorium, it may be difficult to connect, but it's something that we a lot of times ask the town engineer anyway, because it seems like some areas of town maybe have a little more capacity than others. So it's something that we haven't pursued yet. It just depends on which program you go for, but it's certainly worth a discussion at a later date to see if there's any opportunity there. The depression at the center of the site, right where you come in, the site has the advantage that it has great soils, but that is such a deep hole that we had our wetland person in-house go out and take a look at it. And there is some wetland vegetation in portions of the low area, but it is not connected to any other wetland. So it's not a bordering wetland, it's an isolated pocket, and in Westborough, under their local regs, it's protected as a local resource. However, that doesn't mean we can't do anything to alter it, since it really has low value under the Wetlands Protection Act. We spoke to the conservation agent. She thought it would not be unreasonable if we were to fill that, since it really has minimal value, as long as we compensated at the back of the site where there's a real bordering wetland and extend that a little bit, a compensatory wetland area, which we've done on many projects. That probably would be acceptable. So this plan, that's essentially what we showed here. The two front houses that you see, certainly the one on the right, is sort of built on that embankment that's out there. So the idea was that maybe we could excavate down in that area a little bit, push some of that down into the low area, and maybe the house on the left, I think, was also in a little bit of a cut, so we could probably generate some material, especially if you were doing, basements. But so really, it's it's a pretty nice chunk of land. It's got some nice vegetation on it. But this was one approach to where we could get the parking that you needed, get at least 4 units. And mainly, the thing we always are concerned about is getting fire department access. They don't like to drive into a site more than 150 feet without being able to have a full turnaround. So that's what this was sort of limited on, and that's one of the controlling factors. But
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah,
Pleasure.
one curiosity, since we're gonna have to, we got a pretty good sized hole in the middle of the property, we're gonna have to fill that. Is there any possibility of putting the septic in there? I mean, if you're gonna fill it, you could fill it with, you could
there's,
even maybe do a Presby septic system or something like that.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, it would change what you might put in there as far as fill. You'd obviously have to put some
Right.
better material, but, oftentimes the Public Works or they've got fill left over from projects, or there's other projects
Right.
locally that we can find sometimes where you can get stuff, but maybe it's not always the best stuff. But if you were gonna do that, definitely that's an option. We would just have to do a test pit probably in the center to show that there's 4 feet of naturally occurring material. And then you could
okay.
fill it with decent material and then put your septic in there. We were thinking the same thing for drainage too. You could put infiltration in there too instead, and maybe
Yeah.
we wouldn't have to be as careful with the soils. But definitely those are options. Yep.
Filling that pit is gonna require
Yep.
some engineering and
Yep.
probably be, it's gonna be a challenge.
Yeah, yep.
So this is not my area of expertise, I'll just
Yeah.
tell you right now. I'm a social worker.
Okay. All right.
So I look at this and I'm like, oh, that's fun. So, but my question related to that then, Hank, is would the parking lot go over the septic?
Yes.
So what if there was a problem with the septic? Like
Well,
what?
you put manholes,
Okay.
you put access.
You'd have manholes if you need to do observation or check things like that. But if the system totally failed, you would have to dig it up.
Right.
But you could do that as a crushed stone surface maybe instead of pavement,
Yeah.
since
Well-
so there's options. But,
Okay.
I guess one of my questions was sort of a little bit with the layout in that, one of the concepts that we were thinking of was to do perpendicular parking at the curb.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Did we do?
maybe,
We didn't, we held off
you know,
because of the back.
I know people at home won't be able to see me doing the pointing, but we know we need fire department access,
Yep,
right?
yep,
And so instead of this being a driveway, that effectively be, sidewalk.
Yep.
The fire department, that's wide enough for the truck to go,
yep,
right? Because you want the ladder truck to be able to reach the peak of this roof,
yep,
right?
yeah, Yep.
Without the truck being more than 150 feet in.
Yep.
To the property. So the thought was having parking spaces here,
yep,
right off the curb and here, and having this be just a wide walkway that provided access.
You can do that.
And then we wouldn't be putting the paving,
Yep,
over the septic if the septic went there, or over the fill, and we'd have more green space
yeah.
for
Yeah.
kids to play and things of that nature.
Yeah, the couple of reasons that we didn't go straight to that, the first one is, for a parking lot, for generally for communal parking lots like this in Westborough, it says you can't design them so that you need to back out onto a public way. However, there is a section in that parking code that says if there's less than, I think it's 8 spaces, you can. So we were thinking if we wanted to go that route, we could possibly put, maybe there's 6 spaces on one side, and if we need, 5 or so on the other side, we just have a break between them, so it's 2 sections of parking that aren't more than 8. So that, I think, potentially gets us beyond that. The second idea was that just now, we're starting to get into winter, and in winter, everybody's gonna be walking from their cars, especially
Right.
you come home, you get groceries, you got a little, sidewalk to get back to your house. But that's really, that's new urbanism kind of design, so that's, there's projects that we've done in Westborough, the one near the train stations like that, and there's others. So it's not uncommon, so it definitely would save costs.
Right, and one other
Yeah,
aspect. and-
just
Yep.
question. Alan, hi, Randy, this is Ed Bain.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, thanks. I had to come from home. I had a little procedure yesterday in the hospital, so I'm on drugs.
Okay.
But no, I was going to bring up the same point. Is if we look to build 2 types of housing. What we call senior housing, which is 55 plus, 62 plus. And then the other is what we call workforce housing. I'm sure these terms are familiar to you.
Yep.
Which would be more like starter homes for
Yep.
people who work in town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're balancing both. So if this was focused on seniors, not that every site has to be a senior, like 2 could be market rate, or I'm sorry, 2 could be workforce and 2 could be senior, as long as the seniors didn't have to hike any significant distance, particularly with snow and stuff.
So,
The other question I had, and maybe you're going to address it later, is whether this is a good use of a mini HOA.
That's my question,
Or
because
What?
a mini HOA, because my question related to the septic was that if these are affordable units and say a septic fails, then it's the homeowners, all 4 of them have to go in and support
so,
the septic.
so, let me answer the septic question first. So, if it's a shared septic system and the homes are affordable, and there needed to be a capital repair, then there is grant money available from the state.
Okay.
And what happens is, the state will give or loan without a lien the money to do the capital repair.
Okay.
And when those affordable units eventually sell, the state recovers its cost by
Okay.
adding it to the purchase price.
Okay.
The amortized value of it.
Okay.
So there are opportunities for septic maintenance. The other, aspect from a cost standpoint is, with 8 bedrooms, we're under 1,000 gallons, per day
Flow.
capacity. you know, you would need, you know, they would have a living cost in the units of about $500-600 a year to pump. You'd probably want to pump once a year to maintain the system, and that would generally prevent any long-term problems
Yeah.
with the system.
Yeah.
Of doing a pump and a treatment.
Right.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
suspect you'd have to condoize the land.
Yes,
I don't think you can subdivide the land, so I don't think an
No.
HOA works. I think you have to condoize the land.
Yep.
And have a master trust agreement.
Yeah.
And the master trust agreement would cover the condominium.
Yep.
It would also deal with the issues of how do you maintain any landscaping, and how do you do snow removal,
yeah.
okay,
Yeah. It's an extra step to go through, but the advantage of it is you couldn't have, one person in here that says, well, I'm not gonna deal with having the inspection on the system every year.
Right.
You would hire somebody and have a contract up
Right.
front
Yeah,
through
I
the
mean-
condominium association that would make
Now-
sure it gets done, so.
To
Now,
make the condo so-
there are housing trusts elsewhere in the state that have done, projects like this where the land in each of the buildings are all units, are all condo or co-op units,
Yes,
where the trust continues to own the land.
Okay, so
And
you
so
could
the
do,
trust is, from an operating budget, the trust isn't involved. Because they don't have any
Right.
livable square footage, but they're a party to the legal organization, so that on an ongoing basis, they can help the tenant, they can help the residents
Yeah.
with
yeah.
the organization of the association, the contracting.
I mean, one way or another, you're gonna, if you, this size of a condo association, you're gonna need to make it part of the requirements for the condos, that they have an agent that manages the condo association.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, again, having worked with Habitat for a number of years, we've done duplexes and small condo associations, and the folks who own the properties just don't have the ability to
No.
manage those associations effectively. They're first-time homeowners.
yeah.
They don't have a
know.
clue what they're doing.
Yeah.
You need to make sure that a rental agent or a property management agent was there, and you gotta make sure you collect the condo fees and put the
Yep.
money aside and everything else. I mean, we'll need some legal advice on how to
Yeah.
structure the
Yeah.
deal,
Yeah,
along with a
But-
whole bunch
but
of
back-
engineering advice.
Yeah, but
Just a second now. I think another option maybe is Westborough Housing Authority, whether they maintain, although they tend to maintain rental units, not ownership units.
Yeah, we ought to have a separate conversation about attempting to employ them as rental agents or as, agents at this time. That's
don't know if
that's
this would
another
count.
very complicated
Yeah.
activity.
it's not kind of.
Yeah,
And one of the questions that we haven't decided yet is would these be ownership or would they be rentals?
Yep.
In that, particularly if we went with parking where we had, let's say, 6 on one side and a few on the other, even if we kept the left side of the parking lot to provide short access to this home, right? Or,
Yep.
move those here and have the the other spot here for short access to these two. If two of these units, whatever happens on this property is gonna have to be under comprehensive permit. So,
Right.
just because of the underlying zoning doesn't allow 4 units on 0.7 acres, right? It's highly
Well, if you're
non-conforming.
doing senior housing, it potentially does.
Well, if all 4 units are senior housing,
Yeah.
then through the overlay, it potentially does.
The senior
If we
overlay, right?
do a mix, if we said 2 of these units are moderate income senior housing, 55 plus, and 2 are SHI certified affordable housing,
Yeah,
then if they're under comprehensive permit, if they're rental units, all 4 units count towards the SHI inventory,
yeah.
right? And there's some advantage to that. I think part of, as we move forward on that side of the project, whether these are owner or rental, I think part of that will come out of the needs assessment that we're getting involved with in the housing production plan
Yeah,
that we're gonna discuss later today with the planning department and the planning board,
okay.
right? But that, it's good to see that there's a viable build on this property.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
And if we think about that perpendicular parking, which I think, Hank, you've mentioned in the past, would be more of a stretch with respect to neighbors
Oh, yeah, I mean,
and the planning board buying in, but it does
Well,
lower the cost. It lowers the maintenance cost of the property. And it provides more green space for the residents, which is
Yep.
also a nice thing. I think it'll look less imposing on the neighborhood than a lot with a big parking lot in the middle.
yeah. No, it's got some advantages, sure.
And,
Yeah.
you know, a design with that, we could start talking with conservation and talking with the planning department about moving this forward as a friendly bee while we investigate whether we would want this to be built as rental or condo.
I mean, I think I would be reluctant to go to the various boards and committees and pre-permitting folks without an understanding of what the legal structure is gonna be and who the target audience is to buy the properties. I mean, not being able to answer those questions, you're gonna have a hard time getting good answers from the permitting bodies.
I just-
So you gotta, I mean, you don't wanna go into those guys when you don't have when you have 15 ideas on what you might wanna do.
Well, no,
You
part of
win
the,
with it,
but
you-
part of the business one-stop is for
Well,
developers to come in with concepts
Right.
Yeah.
and get feedback on what might be viable.
Yeah,
Right.
a
and what
one-stop
isn't.
meeting would make sense. I don't think you could stand in front of the board and ask them to
No,
say, I
but
like this or I don't, or I'll support it, but a
Even-
one-stop meeting is exactly for that, and just concept is all you need. And then at least you get feedback from everybody, because it'd be good to hear the fire department,
Yeah.
and others speak about it. But I think like you're saying, it makes sense if you have the street parking and you have the two units closest to the street of the senior unit, so then they actually would have
Right.
parking right at those units, and then the back two could be workforce housing or affordable or whatever, yeah. That seems like it works
So I
pretty
mean, we
well.
could make another, I mean,
I like that, I like that idea. I'm sorry, Hank, I didn't mean to interrupt. But I was just looking at this, and if those, front two units near the street
Yeah,
are, if we so decide, could be senior, the back two could be workforce. I mean, they would all still be affordable. And that center area could be a green area, put a gazebo there, people can gather there. It's a place for kids to play if it's a young couples on the workforce. So it has a lot of benefits. I
Right.
mean,
We would just need a center, we would just still need a center sidewalk or pathway that
Right.
that the tower
yeah,
unit
from
could,
where all the parking
that the
can
fire
get-
truck could go
yeah.
on.
so my sense is what we're asking for is that, can we get another concept sketch that would embody off-street parking? Basically the
Yep.
same housing sizes in terms of the footprint, square foot of the footprint,
It's beautiful.
no elevations.
Yep,
And we can go to like the One Stop and
Yeah.
other places, and we can start, do what I call
Yep.
socializing
Yep.
the, hey, here's two
Yeah.
concepts, which do you like better? What do you like and don't like about
Yep.
them?
Yeah.
What would you like us to change? Start down what I call the rubber chicken circuit of going and visiting with people.
okay.
So, thank you very much for this. This is really a beautiful concept, and I really like the fact that it's even possible to do this and have 4 units. I do like the idea of having a second sketch just to kind of see what that might look like. My only concern about, no offense to senior drivers, but my only concern about the parking in front on the street is those being, and as you said, like, you don't want parking spaces that people have to back out into the street for. And if those are going to be specifically designated for the seniors, I'm a little more concerned about that. So I like, I think it's a good idea to kind of talk through this with the various people that,
Well,
No, I think we should talk about it. I mean, I guess the level of traffic on High Street Extension,
is pretty minimal.
it's minimal.
it's very minimal.
It's a relatively low-density residential neighborhood
Right.
even.
and this is senior housing 55 and over, so it's not, that
Yeah.
senior really, but obviously people.
So
they
Alan
want
could
them
live
to-
there.
Yeah.
Yes, I would qualify.
I live there myself. So, but no,
Age-wise, I
it's,
would qualify, but.
But, it would be advantageous, it'd be right at the street, so when you're plowing the road, or your plower guy comes down, it'd be easy for him to plow it and make it clean, and
Yeah.
you'd have good site visibility if you're gonna have parking right there. So, and we can look at some of those
Okay.
things and make sure it's makes
Okay.
sense.
Great.
This is a great start,
Okay, thank you.
I think.
Okay?
And I've assumed that replicating wetlands is it may not be cheap, but it's a fairly straightforward thing to do. I mean,
Yes.
there's lots of folks who know how to replicate wetlands, and the guidelines are fairly clear. We just gotta get the Concom to buy into whatever we wanna do.
Yeah, generally, the concept would be, you wanna basically, if you're gonna try and create a wetland, you wanna have that, hydric soil from another wetland. So
Okay.
if you're taking this site, for instance, you would go to the low area out in the front, you'd excavate those materials. First, you would excavate the area in the back that you wanna create, the elevations is the most critical. So you've got it at
Yeah.
the same elevation as the existing wetland, excavate your other area where you're compensating, then take the wet hydric soils from the front, put them in the back, spread them to the right elevation, and you're halfway there, you know, if you've done everything right correctly and brought that material in and have the right the right elevations. And then you're gonna plant it with some hydric, or herbaceous plants typically that would, like to be in the wet soil.
Basically, we're creating a swamp.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
For
But it's-
mosquitoes, fabulous.
Well,
But, under the
yeah.
Wetlands Protection Act, the idea is that the existing wet area in the front is, it's a little bog that's not doing anything under the
Right.
interests of the act. The back one now would expand a real, wetland that has water quality value and, encourages wildlife habitat and so forth. So it does make sense to do it, and I think the commission would agree in this case.
Yeah. One question I have, and this gets back to the individual structures. We had mentioned about basements versus slab, which would be the alternative. Whether, because we are very near wetlands, do you think there would be a concern about putting basements in as far as, infiltration into the basements from?
No. I think the areas out in the front, that pit is, what was it, 12 or 15 feet, I think, below the
At
adjacent
least,
ground?
yeah.
So I think by the
One of
time,
our,
Go
I was
ahead.
going to say, we think, and I don't know where this came from, that it may have been a gravel pit.
yeah, it looks like it.
Okay,
Okay.
so we would be bringing it back to what its more normal
Yeah.
topography would be.
Yeah, that's,
Okay, but anyhow, I'm sorry I interrupted you, but go ahead on the basement issue, or,
well, I think your excavation for the basement, if it's, 10 feet below the finished floor of the house, then you're probably gonna be down, still several feet above the bottom of that pit right now. So I don't think it'll be a problem.
I didn't,
Okay.
in the reports I saw, I didn't see any evidence that there's a high water table.
No.
In fact, the topology,
Yeah.
the topography indicates that there's not gonna be a high water table.
No, that's exactly what it
You're
shows, yeah.
basically up on a hill.
Yeah, I mean, that little basin would fill up regularly
right.
and be much higher and
Right.
deeper and have a lot more vegetation in it
Right,
than it does, so.
what you got there in that depression is you just got a huge depression
Yeah,
that's probably got a clay bottom in it. And, when you get pretty heavy rains, the water builds up because it's
Yeah.
got no place to go. It's,
Yeah.
the water level's below the surrounding soil and it's not being absorbed.
yeah, no,
Right.
I think makes sense. We can certainly sketch out another
take another
option, and then
sketch,
you'd
yeah.
have two
Great.
to talk to the town about, yeah.
great.
This is exciting. And then we'll, as Hank said, we'll start the process
Yeah,
of,
start talking to people,
of buy-in.
see who likes it and who doesn't like it
Yeah.
and what they like and don't like.
So just to finish on the basement versus slab, would you just as soon have basements in all these units if you can, if it's
Yes.
logical? Okay,
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
people prefer basements because
Yeah.
it gives you
Oh, yeah.
storage space and the like.
Yeah.
But, they're all-
Especially their small footprints.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And-
No,
and
it
it-
makes sense, especially for, senior, usually they're bringing material here and old furniture and other
Yeah.
things, and so
Doesn't
you
really-
want the storage.
Doesn't take a lot more excavation to
Yeah.
do a basement than it does to do a frost wall,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, so long as the basement doesn't hit the water table
Yeah.
or any contaminated soil,
Yeah, as long as it's appropriate, yep.
then it provides a better, even if the basement really is just handling the mechanicals and some storage space,
Yep.
that adds a lot of functionality to the home.
And the
Absolutely.
temporary tornado shelter that we all need to have now because we had like 4 of them last
That's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, you're right.
So,
Okay.
Should we move on to,
Yeah,
I know,
let-
Alan, I gave you the run of the meeting just because it was easier.
Yep,
Should we
yep,
move on to,
let's talk about 6 Beach Street. Okay.
Beach Street, we haven't done any work on yet.
Okay.
We've submitted a proposal to you and outlined some things that we would look at. And I think mainly it made sense to come today and talk about things that you would want to be sure that we look at. Maybe we can throw out a few other ideas or ways to attack it. But essentially, you've got just over an acre. You've got an existing house that I think you said is definitely to be demolished.
Yeah.
And that's a 4-bedroom, so,
You got 4 bedrooms worth of sewer capacity.
yeah, that's the key, yeah,
Probably, I mean, I believe it's connected, so it,
yeah,
yeah,
Yes,
I'm
it
su- I'm
is.
s- I'm sure they're connected, so,
yeah.
I mean, it's like 1.2 acres plus or minus, and it's basically what I call an L-shaped lot.
Yep.
There's the existing home goes back about 50 feet, and then
Yep.
the main majority of the lots parallel to Beach Street.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of an unusual neighborhood in that there's a large multifamily, 2 or 3 story complex adjacent to this
Country
property,
Village.
basically. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Westborough
Yeah.
Village, and
Country Village.
Yeah, Country Village, yeah, that's a
Country,
section 8 housing,
is that Section 8?
yeah.
Country housing is
Yeah.
Section 8? Oh,
Yeah, I
that's
think it
I
is,
didn't
yeah.
know that, okay.
yeah. And that actually has a driveway that comes back to the backside of your property,
Right,
so.
right.
I assume you don't have any really connection with them or any availability without going to talk to them to see if you could, if it made sense to try and have a connection, but it might be something that could come up in the future that,
Okay, so-
I guess our informal discussions internally are for that property similar to High Street.
yeah,
Small footprint,
yeah,
single family, downsize for seniors as well as workforce housing.
be a combination
A
again,
combination again,
Okay.
unsure of the mix. I know there's some beautiful old trees on the property, keep those if we can, if they're
Yeah,
healthy.
It's gonna be very difficult to keep, but that's all right.
But we'll see. I'm the optimist, Hank's the realist.
Right,
Yeah,
now
they make a good
you
pair.
own this now,
We own the
it.
property, yes.
under the housing trust, not the town?
Under the
Housing
housing
trust,
trust,
right.
yes.
Okay,
And so we're looking, at those types of concepts.
Yeah.
It is part of the Vintonville Historic District. So
But we have checked, I talked with
informally,
Chris Hendricks informally, and he did a little research too, and he was the one that informed us it was part of Vintonville, which you can actually look up on Wikipedia. And he said there was nothing special about the house. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's not authoritative, yeah, go ahead and do a demo, but he didn't just informally think that would be any concerns.
okay,
But
so
just-
no demolition delay bylaw or anything that you'd be worried about?
Don't
Okay,
expect the
Don't-
demolition. We
Okay.
certainly have to go through the process, but
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
But-
okay,
And the other component, the Vintonville Historic District, what makes it historic, it was one of the first planned neighborhoods for workforce housing. So whereas the downtown historic district were business owners,
yeah,
and the homes had much more elaborate architectural style and design, what makes Vintonville noteworthy is that it was built for the workforce originally, and that the homes lack architectural design. And
okay,
so, as we go forward with the project, the physical appearance of the house, the homes, would have to fit with the theme of the historic district.
which is plain Jane versus
Plain-
a lot of trim and
Right,
fancy.
plain Jane, siding,
That's easy,
you
yeah, okay,
know.
that's,
um, practical,
yeah, yeah,
and as part of our mission and wanting, and one of our guiding principles is to fit with the neighborhood anyways.
yeah, yeah,
That neighborhood still is, housing, not affordable capital H, but It's,
Right.
you know, it meets the housing needs of a broad economic range.
Sure.
And we would want, you know, the style and the nature of what we
Yeah.
do on the property to fit in with that as well.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, just some questions that, again, would the trust be interested in considering duplex, triplex, quadruplex arrangements of housing, which make it easier to get the density on a small lot?
We might, I think the challenge with that is you have the large apartment complex at the end of this, you know, that's sort of adjoining and in between, you know, our L-shaped lot, you know, in the elbow of the L, there is a single-family home.
Yeah.
And historically, that home's had a single-family neighbor on one side and then the driveway to the apartment complex on the other. And so even if, you know, a quad or a 6-unit building was set back on the
Yep.
wide part of the property behind him, that might, for the neighbors, for the neighboring homes, that might feel imposing. Now, there are a couple of row houses in the neighborhood,
Yeah.
2-story, you know, 2 units on each set, quads, or, you know, I think there's one eightplex
If
in the
you,
neighborhood, but,
you'd have to assume you're gonna need, fire protection systems in the house if it's
Yep.
3 or more units
Yep.
connected.
Yeah,
So that would be one negative. I assume this, you said this was on sewer and water now, town sewer and
so
water.
the
Yes.
existing home has
well, the
So-
one home is.
What's that?
the existing home has 4 bedrooms.
Yeah,
So the current allowed allocation is 440 gallons per day.
right.
So if we were going to do, let's say, you know, 4 2-bedrooms or 6 2-bedrooms, 2 of the homes could be on town sewer.
Right,
The other 4 would have to be on a shared septic.
right. No, I'm actually talking water. This is on town water though
Everything's
now?
town water,
Town water, yes.
Okay,
No
okay.
wells. I
Okay,
mean, you say,
all right.
you don't have the well
And there's,
constraint.
and gas, they have gas going to the main house, so.
Okay, all right, okay, yeah, I was just more concerned if you were on a well or something, then
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
did a fire protection and you get into bringing in a larger, say an 8-inch ductile water line and it just snowballs, so it almost would be better to stay at smaller units, but
Right.
if you're comfortable that if that came up, that's not a deal killer, then certainly worth considering. I mean, you've got the room there, if you could put in a, you know, say it was a 4-unit building in the back and a single or something in the front, or maybe 2 singles in the front. I mean, to me, you're transitioning from the, you know, the village down to the single-family units, and
Right.
you're in between, so as you step down from them down to your single families, that seems like it'd be pretty appropriate, but,
Yeah, I mean, I'm just taking a nice tour of the neighborhood via Google right now, and immediately across the street are some fairly large homes
Yeah.
with some detail
Yep.
that are not plain Jane. And then, but down the road further are some smaller,
Yeah.
more
Right.
simple homes. And then so it's a mix in the
Yeah.
neighborhood. So I think that there could be a lot of different things that you could do with that property.
Is there a target unit count that would be ideal?
Eventually, to make the numbers work, you're gonna need 6 to 8.
6 to 8 would be,
My guess is to make the numbers work, to make the economics of the project be feasible,
Yeah.
you gotta get up in that range.
Yeah.
That's a
And
lot
again,
of,
and part of the economics will also potentially depend on whether these are also owned or rental units. So
Yeah.
well, I mean, so for example, right now, I sent some emails out to find if there's money left in the program, but there is Westborough with under 50,000 residents is considered a small community for one program, where if you're creating rental units as affordable housing, you can get up to $200,000 per unit in a 0 interest, 0 amortization, 50-year loan.
wow.
And so,
Beat that.
and so that can go a long way to subsidizing a project. And of course, the trust could figure out how much we need to invest today so that in 50 years,
Yeah,
the loan gets paid off,
yeah,
in a safe way. And so can lower the subsidy requirement from the trust or other sources too. So, part of, as we get further down, I think the first step is conceptually, what could we do if it were,
What
you know,
fits.
single-family cottages or
Yeah.
a mix of a multi-unit building and, you know, or duplexes. You know, 3 duplexes could be very nice as well, right? There we need someone creative in design and, you know, aesthetically what fits on the property and what's in the neighborhood, knowing that we also might need to leave room for septic.
Yep.
You know, or we could plan to build the project in phases, get 2-unit, you know, get 4 bedrooms built now and wait until if and when the sewer allocation, well, it's a when, but, you know, gets reassessed before adding
Sure.
and getting more allocation. So, I don't have it in front of me, the proposal you sent in for some design work.
Okay.
Our conversation here, does that change the scope of it?
No.
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 I mean, again, the scope is kind of give us some concept drawings for what could be done on this property,
Yep.
achieving high density, and
Yeah.
I wanted to try and see if we could give it a little more direction than that
Yeah.
to Randy and Carlos, so that they have some idea of the kind of the ballpark we want to play in, some
Yeah.
limits. I mean, starting out with an unlimited, unbounded space, you're not going to get anywhere.
No, this is definitely helpful, very helpful,
You know,
yeah.
Randy, the idea that you raised, that maybe being able to access, as you go around the L shape,
Yeah.
accessing, if you could make a loop driveway in there, really help you with the fire department.
Help with the fire
right?
and, you know, then.
So my sense
yeah,
is, but that would mean sharing the driveway for the existing multifamily property.
Yeah,
Or,
I was going to say if there is a way we could work with them, since they are affordable units. You know, they're trying to solve the same problems that we are. So they should hopefully be more accepting of being able to use, you know, their driveway either is, you know, both ways, entrance and exit. And the fire, if we had a street going down there, you know, around the L, that would make it,
So,
you know, I'm sure the fire department would be happy with that. Well, I'm fairly sure the fire
Right, well-
department would be happy with that.
Yeah, one way we were thinking about it was not, it doesn't have to be access to your property necessarily. You could have it so it was gated, say it was just a post and
Right.
rail fence across the end of their driveway.
Yeah.
But you have an emergency connector that goes through your site that
Right.
the fire department could access. And then maybe
Right.
you could also connect the water line through, so they have better flow, you have better flow. So, but those are things
Yeah.
that
so
we'll have.
so we'd need to talk to the owner of the property and see
Yeah.
if they're willing to at least, willing to even negotiate with us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
That's an interesting idea, because it really, you said it, it solves a whole bunch of problems, being able to make a loop,
Yep.
an emergency access loop,
Yep.
possibly even pull some utilities from the backside.
Yeah.
You don't have quite as long a pipe and et cetera.
It could make a
Interesting
difference, yeah.
concept.
So I would suggest you do that as early as
Yeah.
you can, just, I mean, because
Yeah.
now if you own it.
Gotta go
it's-
figure out who
it's a-
owns the
yeah.
property.
And you can't really
We
go
don't.
tell them exactly what you're doing yet. You're just trying
Yeah,
to do
we're
your
doing
homework
it.
and find out if they, you know, willing to work together and, you know, support a mutual cause, so.
Yeah, I mean, usually with developers, if you talk money, they listen.
What do we get out of it?
okay, so does someone have the proposal?
I
Kind of-
can send a proposal to everybody. Is it-
Okay, do we have the dollar amount in it?
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
have it here.
Who's got-
Yeah, thank you. I just
Yeah.
wanna,
$4,800 in
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
What was the number?
It's, the number of the proposal, in the proposal is $4,800.
Right.
that's a typical value for starting to work. I mean, it's,
Yep.
Yeah, that's,
it's unlikely that that's the closing value, but that's the beginning. That's step one. That's where you
Yeah.
get to the point where you have some idea what's possible.
yeah, that's, you know, creating a compiled base plan, walking the property, looking at, different things, even site distance, vegetation, some of the trees you might wanna save, that kind of stuff, access from other properties, and then putting together, you know, going through
Some
the code,
concepts.
thinking about different options for code, and then doing a couple of different concepts to the level that we had
And
before.
again, with a few concepts, you know, we could then have an informal meeting with the planning board.
Yep.
There might be a particular concept that they prefer.
Mm-hmm.
We can, you know, we
You-
can do the business one stop and get feedback on the concepts and give us
Yeah.
direction on,
Yeah.
you know, if we're comfortable with, you know, if we're comfortable with 2 concepts, but, you know, the
Mhm.
historical commission and the planning board are you know, see one is better, then we would head in that direction. and then look to see how we make that work. So,
Yeah.
I guess I'll entertain a motion to engage and allocate the $4,800.
So moved.
Seconded?
Okay, and we get to do a roll call vote. Ed?
Bain, yes.
Hank?
Roush, yes.
Storm, yes.
Edinburgh, yes. So it passes 4-0 for being present. Thank you.
Thank you. All right,
Thank you
appreciate
very
it.
you
much
so
for your
much.
support.
All right.
Marilyn,
Thank
thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Again, you guys know how to get a hold of me if you have questions
Yes.
or need anything.
Okay.
Okay, oh, we should,
That's, we'll just,
okay, so yeah, Ed has to come in and sign.
yeah, he'll sign.
Yeah, I'll sign.
Okay.
Yeah,
Or
just
we
whenever,
can do it
that's fine.
electronically.
Okay, we'll get that signed into you.
Yeah, yeah, I think we said in there we'd have something in the next couple of weeks, so if you can just mail that back, if you drop
Yep.
it at the office, whatever's easiest, whenever you can, there's no
I
hurry.
c- Ed, I can email you the proposal, you can print it, do whatever.
Okay.
Well,
Thank you.
Okay,
can you do it electronic? Just email back and forth?
Yeah, I think we can, if we,
Yeah,
did-
we
if
can do
Ed
that.
just sends you back a commitment letter, you don't
Yeah,
need a
whatever's
signature.
easy.
well,
Yeah,
if
if
you
you-
email this to send Ed, he can sign it online and
Right,
email it.
right.
Yeah,
right?
if you want to
That's
send
fine.
it to Ed, or
I'll
if you give
send
me
it
Ed's
to- I'll
email,
send
we
it
can
to
send
Ed
it to Ed,
and-
either
and,
one.
He'll sign and
He'll
forward
get
it
it
on.
back to you. Thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you, nice to meet you all.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, same here. Thanks, Rick.
Okay, great. So next on the agenda is a discussion of the housing production plan proposal.
Maybe you want to talk about how this came about
Yeah, so,
with Jenny?
sure. So how this, is brief introduction, how this came about is, one of the key near-term action items in the master plan is the creation of a housing production plan. Housing production plans serve a number of purposes. The big purpose is to sort of set guidelines about housing, what the needs within the community are, and really help guide planning and permitting and zoning decisions to facilitate creation of housing that meets a documented need and the documented priorities of the community. They also have a broader purpose. So if a community is below the 10% threshold for subsidized housing inventory, and they create an approved housing production plan, one that's approved by the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, formerly DHCD, and housing production plan, those plans include number of units to be built within certain timeframes, and they meet those numbers, then it actually provides some measure of protection from hostile 40B. Because it indicates that the community is actively working to increase the SHI in a planned way. And so the 40B projects can be fit or forced to fit within those plans rather than totally sidestepping local zoning and other, permitting components when the comprehensive permit's issued. Westborough is above 10%. But having a housing production plan becomes a prerequisite for certain grants and certain funding and certain affordable housing and other residential and commercial development programs from the state. So even though we're above the 10% SHI, it's good to have a housing production plan and track residential home development and units created against what the plan says we expect based on needs and priorities. For us as a trust, it's an opportunity to get a lot of great information about demographics, projected demographic changes, more specific housing needs, as well as it'll identify at a high level opportunities as far as locations, as far as zoning, right? And so some of what can come out of a housing production plan is saying a town should consider rezoning this portion of the community to create the opportunity for the type of housing you need, where that particular concept might not be anyone's radar yet, right? So it's another look. And the good news is that the analysis and action plan we created prior to the creation of the trust is actually very similar in a lot of its content with a housing production plan. And with the work on the master plan and with the senior needs assessment, a lot of raw data has been gathered that would go into it. And so the housing, the master plan advisory committee, the planning department, has available funds that were unused for that project. And they wanted to apply that to work on a housing production plan. And the request came from our planning director to see if the Affordable Housing Trust would be interested in partnering with our community development department in creating the housing production plan and helping fund with our funds. If not, this is something that would likely need to go before town meeting in March, which means we wouldn't have the plan till a year from now.
Yep.
Whereas if we decided to go forward with the plan and co-fund it, it would start now. It takes about 6 months to produce the document. And so Jenny Gringus, our planning director, shared the proposal from the vendor who would do it. They do housing production plans for communities across the Commonwealth and similar work in other states as well. The outline of what's in the plan is really designed to create the document that meets the specifications and has the information that's required to get it approved and be the baseline for certification by the state. I did, in the copy that was shared in our packets for the meeting, I inserted some notes asking some red lines about adding some specific language about quantitative data to assess needs for very low and low income affordable housing, moderate income housing, specifically looking at residents on wait lists for rental housing and the number of residents who've submitted to lotteries for owning housing, whether those are in Westborough or not, who haven't been successful in winning the lottery, to get a sense of how much pent-up demand is there for affordable rental units and or affordable ownership units. And then my other red line was just to have them include our affordable housing analysis and action plan from 2020, as well as the results of the Aging in Westborough Community Needs Assessment from 2023 in their source documentation, as there's a lot of good information there.
And that was in the packet that you sent out
Yes.
for the meeting. The detail, the full proposal.
And so with Jenny not being here today, we can discuss a little bit today. We can decide if we have other feedback or other questions about this. She got back, I had sent her my red lines, and she's just going to double check that wouldn't affect the scope as far as the pricing.
What was the price?
They're looking for the trust for $13,800. So the total cost of the document is a little under $30,000. Not knowing if the amount's going to change. Well, we could vote for the $13,800 and plus some contingency if it does go up, or we could wait to vote until our next meeting if people have additional questions about the scope of the proposal.
I'm good.
Yeah, I move we approve up to $15,000 to support the housing production plan.
Second.
Just okay. I have a question. In the cost estimate, I'm looking at the DHB's, they call it the client authorization, which I think you had in the packet. I have it separately, but I'm just trying to reconcile to make sure that I thought Jenny said that there were she had 9,000 somewhere.
Yeah, so they have, some of this work was done as part of the master plan.
Okay.
So the total, the contract amendment would be, is the additional $13,800. there's also about $9,000, I think it's actually $9,600 that of unused funds on the existing contract that would be applied to the project. So, I
Right.
guess to correct myself, the total cost of the project is really about $24,000.
Oh, okay.
We would be
Because-
paying, effectively, the planning department would be paying a little less than 10, we'll be paying about 14 in round numbers.
Okay, because, yeah, the numbers that are shown on the, weren't jiving. Because they had 29,000 under contract total. Now, maybe some of that is
Yeah.
money that had already been spent. Then there's a portion that Jenny has to kick in, 9,000, and then 8,400 from us.
Okay,
Right, do it,
yep. Well, with Hank's motion, that gives
Yeah.
a little bit of contingency and would
Yeah,
allow Jenny to move forward.
so, yeah, it was 8,500? Hank?
The motion was not to exceed 15,000, which is what,
I'm sorry, 15,000.
yeah, Alan had said 13, it says 15 ought to give us plenty of headroom.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I agree with that approach.
Okay. So roll call vote. Ed?
Bate, yes.
Hank?
Roush, yes?
Storm, yes?
Edinburgh, yes. The motion passes 4-0, 4 being present. Okay, next on the agenda is the Rogers Road development and an update, because you guys attended, or Hank attended the board meeting.
Yep, I went to the Housing Authority Board, I think it was last week. I sat through their fiscal year '24 budget review. I believe their fiscal year starts in October. Strange fiscal year, but to get some understanding of, a little better understanding of their finances and such, and that was kind of interesting. Net result of listening to that for myself anyway was that the budget review was proposed by their financial advisor, who's an accountant that works for an outside firm, does all their accounting and bookkeeping for him. I was surprised at the degree of constraint that their budgets and spending and everything are under based on regulatory compliance. But again, just from an uneducated person listening to the budget presentation, an awful lot of the decisions as to what they spend and how much they spend and where they spend it is prescribed by Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. That surprised me. So really, their arena for direct action by the board, other than dealing with kind of operational things, seems to be kind of limited. I need to learn more about that, but it was surprising. I went through a presentation. I sent it out to everybody, basically summarizing the work that had been done on putting a lift in and suggesting that anything further they needed to pursue themselves. Did not really get much reaction to that. I think they understand where it's at, and I don't. My guess is that they're not going to proceed, but that nobody really committed either way. Went through the rest of the presentation, suggested, hey, that if they want to proceed with this Rogers Road property, we need to put together some kind of an interdisciplinary, intermunicipal team, come to an agreement, empower a team to take action and do things, write a written agreement and such. They didn't pick up on that suggestion in terms of saying, oh yeah, let's go do that. What they said was, well, we need to take that under advisement and discuss it and decide what to do.
Okay.
The chair of the Housing Authority Board was not at the meeting. Jill Dupre was tied up with other business. So there were really 4 board members, and their financial advisor was there, and their ED was there. The ED seemed to be interested in helping, but the board hasn't asked her to do that. And oh, by the way, the ED position is a somewhat less than half-time position.
Yes.
And
Right. I mean,
so.
that's one of the issues that our housing authority faces, right? And,
Yep.
and why for years it was managed jointly with Hopkinton, and that the way the state manages local housing authorities is there's small, mid-size, and large.
Yep.
200 units, your 201st unit gets you, or 200th unit gets you into the mid-size category.
Mm-hmm.
Once you hit mid-size, there are operating subsidies
Yep.
from the state,
Well,
which aren't available to the small, and if small housing authorities aren't sustainable, then the state will take action to merge them in. And
Yep.
that, for a community like ours, that would be not a good thing, because we'd most likely be merged in with the nearest large authority, which would be
Which would be
Worcester.
Worcester. Yep.
And we would really lose local, not just local control, but local focus for what's needed in allocation of resources. So, your past conversations, that board understands that getting to 200
Yep,
units.
I mean, that's clearly their goal.
That's what they would like to do.
If
They-
if they want to do that, clearly, as challenging as it will be given their resource constrictions, a joint effort where where we've got funding that we can apply to get the experts in to do the work on their behalf, and on a
Yep.
joint effort behalf, we could look to explore the possibilities of the
Yep.
property, and get a sense for, how many units can we add there, and also keep engaging them in discussions, so that if there are opportunities for them to have units under ownership or management, that the state would count towards their inventory. So, for example, there are, the housing authority owns a building that's operated by a department of the state, for disability services. And that counts as part of their inventory. If they're managing property for property we might own or someone else might own, does that count towards their, we don't know. And so figuring out how we can help them get to that 201 magic number while we're doing our programs, I just think it'll be good to have, continue to have as part of your conversations that you've been having.
Yep.
And see.
I
It's a-
figure the
it's
next,
a big change.
what I will do is I will contact Jill Dupre, the chair, and suggest that she possibly meet with Kate and myself and Maureen Johnson, who's on the board, and talk about how we can help the board, help her work with the board to move to the next step. Because,
Yep.
again, this first interaction, the board didn't appear to be ready to move to the next step.
Okay. So I say keep having the
Yeah,
conversations.
we'll keep
and-
having conversations.
We'll keep
It's gonna
working.
be, it's a long road.
Okay.
Thanks for all the work you're doing on that. I know that it's, with the change of the director, the executive director from, Linda's retired or moved on, and, you have a little bit of a moving target, if that's the right word. But thank you for all the work you're doing, Hank and Kate.
Okay.
Mostly Hank.
So, next up is 3 Baylor Avenue, the additional assessment work. Ed, do you want to intro this one?
Yeah, basically, we engage,
Time bomb.
background is, I think you know about it, was that the, MCO, Marco Hagan, went for a bank loan, construction loan, and the bank does its due diligence and found that there had been an oil spill there in 2006, I believe. Maybe it's a little later than that. Anyhow,
2004.
even though it was mitigated and treated and had been signed off by DEP, the bank still had concerns. So we agreed, well, we'll have T&B go in and see what they see, have them come back and provide a report to us. They visited the property. They basically came back with the assumption that they think it's prudent to test under the slab, because the tank that leaked was right against the back of the house. So, you know, you may have seepage under there.
Oh, yeah.
So they've come back with a proposal for, what's it, 4,100?
You're not doing the numbers, I'll tell you. It's $5,100.
Wow.
51.
Okay.
Right. Of course
To
it is.
drill, what they'll do is they'll drill through the floor inside the house in the back where the tank was to do appropriate soil testing. And they have to do some asbestos work or it's got to be done within, under asbestos,
Protocols because of the floor tiles.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So
So,
and part of what they're looking for in this, the way the original spill was treated, there was removal of material from the soil. The DEP report doesn't actually specifically say how much was. It also doesn't say how deep the remediation was, which is unusual. But then it was chemically treated. So the spill area was treated with chemicals that accelerate the breakdown of the oil. So given the
yeah,
time
hydrogen
frame,
peroxide.
right? So given the time frame, their only really concern is there any residue left that is within the dig depth for a slab foundation or close enough to any new foundation that could be a vapor issue, which would require more soil to be removed. And so by drilling this, they'll understand what's under the house component and do it. The other piece in parallel is we've asked MCO to go to the lender and find out
Right.
what's acceptable to them, right? Because if their request is merely that there's a licensed site professional monitoring the project, then we can go forward with that.
Okay.
Basically what Ty and Bond has told us, if they go down and they dig these core samples and they say, well, there's residual, there's residue that's, 6 inches too close to slab depth, that you have a vapor issue, then we'd have to remove 6 inches. You have to dig down, remove that, dig that down 6 more inches and remove that 6 inches of, soil with residue.
And then
And
remove it.
that doesn't necessarily even have to be removed off-site. It can be removed to another part of the property so long as it's in an allowed area. So Hank's gnashing his
Yeah,
teeth.
Yeah,
So
I'm just thinking, I mean, to me, the only question is, do we go do core testing like that, or do we wait until they tear the slab up and test after they tear the slab up?
Well, so the challenge is that without a resolution, MCO won't get the construction
Yeah, no, I
loan,
understand.
and therefore the
That's-
demolition won't
that's
happen
the-
unless we decided to modify the PNS so that we are responsible for the demolition.
Well, which you don't want to do because you trigger the 30A, but you could write could hire them to take care of getting the demolition done and pay them for it, or guarantee them you'll pay for the demolition.
Yeah, we could
There's
come
ways
up with
ways
something, and
around that.
I don't know
But I
if
think the
he's
move,
willing to do that. There's also another potential if the bank's concern is one of liability,
right, then we
the
could-
trust holds the liability
right. We're
anyways.
liable anyway.
We
absolutely.
could potentially, and I'm looking into the viability, it would be a lot of work, but we could potentially provide the construction loan.
Well, again, we have the my understanding is that under the federal law, because we're the current property owner,
We hold it.
and there's no way to go after the prior property owner, we own the liability for any contamination.
Right.
We have to pay for cleaning up any contamination. And so again, hey, if their bank will loan them the money, with just a guarantee that we'll pay for the extra work if we need to, super.
Okay, so,
But again, I
the-
mean, you want to get that answer before you go
right,
before you go spend $5,000 to core drill a place.
right. So,
I have a question on this. And I know this is public meeting, but a respected member of our finance team has told me or informed me that T&B often keeps coming back with projects, like, extends projects. And my concern is at what point do we, are we done with working with T&B? And this then goes off to, a remediator or somebody else. Are they going to do the drill and then say, oh, well, we found this, this, and this? It may not be major things, but then they'll recommend
So,
doing some more.
so they're licensed as site professionals. So
Right.
they'll provide the results of the drilling, and then they'll make a recommendation as to whether or not remediation, any additional remediation is necessary for compliance. Right?
Right.
And
But-
and those recommendations can be, you definitely need to do it. It could also be, you should do it because there might be a problem down the road, or, yeah, there's a chance of a problem down the road, but there's nothing urgent that's pressing any additional remediation. I guess I would say I would look at the motion and say that the motion would be to move forward with tie and bond if MCO's lender isn't able to agree to a condition in the PNS that ensures that the trust will bear all financial cost for any potential remediation. And then they could start with the demolition, and then we can do the testing at a lower cost. Because the foundation we won't be drilling through the foundation, the slab. If people are comfortable with that, that's fine. If not, then we wait to hear back from MCO and their lender, and we readdress this at our next meeting.
Yeah,
I don't think we should do anything until we
I
hear
think we get an answer
from-
Okay.
from the lender.
from MCO.
Do you know which bank they're working with?
I think it's Middlesex.
I say, it might be worth having them talk to the town's bank, see if they get better answers.
I'll talk to them. So,
Yeah, just because it's the
okay.
town's bank, that they may be more cooperative, I don't know.
yeah, so I'll,
Rockland, I think, and I don't know if Rockland's more cooperative or not.
I'll reach out to Mark O'Hagan.
Yep.
And we'll get that moving, and I'll let the folks at Ty and Bond know that we're gonna see, if their bank is comfortable with a modification to the PNS that, absolves them of liability for any potential contamination or remediation. If they would be, if that's enough for them to move forward, we can start going ahead with the project and deal with it in the normal course of construction. And do a less expensive test. Okay. Okay, so next is 6 Beach Street property care.
Yeah, nothing much. The gas has been turned off. I got to confirm on that. The other issue, is the landscaping or de-landscaping. And we have a proposal from Matt Story to basically clear cut that front using like a bobcat. He says he can do that himself because they're busy this time of year, and mow the side. As you face the property, there's a yard on the side, just that to where the garage is. Just what you would see from the street, not the whole back 40. And the quote on that is $2,960. So let's say $3,000, which I was a little surprised at.
Okay, yeah. I mean,
Now
go ahead, Ed, sorry.
yeah, I was going to say an alternative. I mean, that would do it. That would clear it up. I also got a quote that he would do snow plowing for $60. And I mentioned, we need the sidewalk, and it would probably be good to at least be able to put a car in the driveway. Driveway is pretty easy to plow, I would expect. You don't need to go all the way back to the garage. So those are two numbers. We could, because some of the bushes that were blocking the sidewalk have been trimmed back. So that's not the issue, which was the initial complaint we got, that was blocking people from walking. Particularly people down on, in the large housing project, Westborough Village. We could wait until the spring after, lots of stuff is probably going to die back. And clean up may be easier then. Or we may have, I don't know, reached an agreement with somebody to do something, but I doubt it. That's pretty short term over the next 5 months or so. So
Yeah, I don't think we need
that's
to.
sort of my feeling now is let's wait until the spring, let things die back, and then depending, since we're looking at demo, cleaning out that front would be part of the demo anyhow.
I mean,
And as long as we're reasonable neighbors, I don't see us having to do a lot. Let the winter happen, and then in the spring address it.
I agree.
I agree. And if we feel the property needs one cut, I think we can reach out to many of the, we can reach out to the high school. There's students who run landscaping who can go, who are looking for work to do one cut.
Just the grass cut.
I don't think, for the grass cut, I don't think we need $3,000 worth of landscaping work
You don't
on
want
the
to get
property.
involved in mowing the grass. All you want to do is cut those, some point in time, you may need to cut those bushes back. The rest of it,
Right.
you're gonna have to let the grass go wild. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't maintain that grass looking like a lawn.
No, agreed. Periodically. We'll do it. I mean, if we do it to Baylor, which is 3 or 4 times a year,
Yeah, we go in there with a sickle bar or whatever, and
go in
if
and,
it gets
DPW went
unmanageable,
in with the tractor and just
Jeez, I mean,
took it, took
Right.
it from 14 inches down to 6. And
absolutely.
It looked great.
Because, I mean,
So
we're probably gonna be at this for a year, 18 months to get
Yeah.
through all these permitting processes.
Okay. So we'll hold off on that for now.
right, how about before we do snow plowing? I just asked him. I don't know because the little tractor that does some of the downtown streets. I asked specifically, and it does not go down Beach Street.
Well,
No.
So
And, there, and remember,
we're gonna
there's
have
no,
to do.
there's no requirement to clear the walk.
yeah, I mean,
Really?
There's no ordinance, there's no bylaw in town that requires
yeah,
I-
residents. The
which
select
case, I mean,
board discussed this early in my tenure, and
Uh.
the resounding feedback we had in a public hearing was no.
yeah, I'd leave it alone until we find some good reason why we need to clear the walk.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Okay. So next on the agenda is 7 Lawton's Way.
All right, so I'll get back to Matt and say we've decided not to do anything at this point.
Okay, great, thank you. So next on the agenda is 7 Lawton's Way, the option to purchase. We were notified, MCO was contracted by EOHLC to market the property. We were notified that they did receive an application from an eligible buyer. So that process is moving forward. We probably need to pull down the posters at the library in the senior center.
Do you wait a minute? Are you talking about?
Lawton's Way or
You mentioned Lawton's Way.
Stagecoach?
Isn't this the circle, the
What?
Stagecoach, this is Lawton's Way, not Stagecoach.
This is Lawton's Way, not Stagecoach.
Right, we didn't put up a poster on Lawton's Way that I'm aware of. We didn't, I don't know who
No.
did, if somebody did, I don't remember seeing one. I saw,
Oh,
a
wait,
stage-
you're right, we didn't
I
have
saw
that,
a
right, right.
Stagecoach poster,
Right,
we-
I'm sorry, excuse me.
yeah, so there was no poster on Lawton.
Okay, sorry, you're right, I'm confusing, so I apologize. Stepping back. Stagecoach Circle, that we should pull the posters down, they have an eligible buyer for that.
Okay,
7 Lawton's Way, I apologize, the process is just beginning.
Yeah.
so,
And so they're just starting to market.
Okay.
Now, I think this is a little different than a standard, or I say what we've seen before of, the purchase price or the affordable price versus their appraised or assessed values.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, why don't you talk about that? Because it was under a program called HOP.
right, yeah, so Lawton's Way was built under a no longer active program called the Housing Opportunity Program, which provided subsidies for the construction of what would be considered now moderate as well as low-income housing. And so the affordable price is a higher percent, it's based on a percentage of the market value, a normal market value. It doesn't necessarily use the standard formula. It is, still marketed to families at 80% AMI or less with the normal income and asset limitations. So at this point, I believe we voted to,
No.
We never voted on Lawton's Way because
Lawton's Way.
it hadn't been,
Right.
given to, EOLs, whatever.
yeah, so the window on Lawton's Way has just started.
Right. So they're starting to market it.
Right.
Any idea what the affordable price is?
It's in the,
It's
hold on, 367, I think.
And there's no,
367.
somebody's looked at
It's
it.
up.
The state agencies looked at it and it's marketable as is.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, at that price, it ought to go easy.
Yeah.
Well, is it still restricted to 80% AMI?
Sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, so the property will go at 386,530.
386.
386,530 is the
Yeah.
maximum selling price. It's an 80% AMI with the standard asset limitations.
Right.
Okay.
Is it all first-time home buyer, or is it just asset limitations?
It's just those limitations. It's not
Okay.
necessarily even first-time home buyer.
Okay.
I think there's a preference for first-time.
Yeah, probably is a lottery preference or something.
Okay. The
The
clock,
value,
the clock,
220
the clock has started ticking. I haven't gotten the exact day when the 90-day clock started, but it's less than 30 days ago, for sure.
Yeah. I have a comment.
Yeah, so the question,
The other thing, let me just throw in another number. If this was under the current non-HOP based formulae, it would be 228,000. Would be it's very, very similar to Baylor.
it would be 239.
Yeah, but, I mean,
Or
Well, excuse me,
239.
no, it's, we don't have a number of what it would have been if it was a traditional local action unit or LIP property.
Right.
We haven't gotten that number. The house was purchased in
Oh.
2005 for 239,000.
Okay, but I thought I saw somewhere that Ryoko said that it was 228. But
well, but it is what it is, Ed, right?
But- but-
Right.
It is
well,
what it is, and the issue
it is what
uh,
it is.
If it
Here's
sells,
my-
if it sells, great. If it doesn't, I assume we have the option to do something.
Well, that was what I'm getting to. I'm saying if it's in that lower 200 number, we don't have immediate rights of first refusal. It's only if they can't find an eligible buyer. That's a question.
That is how they're managing it. Well, no, I mean, we
Okay.
could step in as an eligible, by definition, we're an eligible buyer. So
Right.
we could step in and offer. The one issue with this property is that the current homeowners are looking to acquire a property, and they were hoping for a fast close in December.
Right.
But with the property being marketed in the 90-day window and a possible extension, that's very, very unlikely to happen.
Right.
And sort of what happens is owners of affordable homes with the restrictions, they get ready to sell, they start looking, and they don't realize that notifying the state should be the first thing they do. So they're already down the road, and, home buying takes a while, so they're down the road, and then they notify the state, and then the state starts the 90 days. And they weren't counting on that, right? So, the family would love to be able to close in mid-December. I doubt with the marketing of the property that would happen through EOHLC and their marketing efforts. In theory, the trust could acquire the property and immediately turn around and sell it. We'd incur the cost of the marketing plan again. I guess my recommendation, hold on a second, would be for us not to take any action at this time,
Right.
but get a sense for our December meeting if we want to take action.
Yes, I mean, we need to get from the marketing agent, get the marketing agent to tell them what level of interest they're seeing.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they usually keep, my understanding is they keep it open. They don't necessarily take the first person who walks in the door.
Well,
If there's more than one, they do a lottery.
it depends how they
Yeah,
market
okay.
it. Stagecoach Circle is first come, first
Right.
served.
But anyway,
Right.
I mean, at this point,
Yeah.
I don't think we want to get involved in acquiring and then trying to sell the property if we can avoid it.
Right.
I'm
Then-
sorry that the family is hung up. I don't believe we're the appropriate
No.
people to help them.
Here's my one line of thought. If we look at, and once we get the right numbers, we're looking at 100 to 150K. If we were to buy it at the 386, sell it at 230, which would be 150,000.
No, we would
Let
sell
me
it,
finish.
Ed, the deed on the property, we would sell it at the 386.
Yeah. I mean, we can sell it for any number we want. Could sell it
Yeah,
for
I-
50, if we want, but I mean, why would we do that?
Only to get a lower cost.
No, but again, you've got a property that should be affordable to 80%. I mean, if we discover the property's not affordable to people at 80% of income, fine, then we have to do something, but
Yeah.
I'm assuming the state's
Okay.
smart enough to have gone through that calculation.
Yeah.
I mean, the state's not
All right.
stupid. I'll take those words back one of these days, but.
I mean, I think at this point,
Put that in the minutes that Hank stated.
I guess at this point, the only reason we would need to step in would be if we wanted to try and get a closing by mid-December to help the family out on that. But in acquiring the property, we have legal fees, and then if we immediately turn around to sell it under the program, we're responsible for the 2%, commission, as well as all the legal fees on the sell side,
Yeah,
right?
And whatever other selling expenses we incur.
Right,
And the
so,
fact that you're buying a pig in a poke, you don't know whether you're gonna have to go in there and do renovations before you can get
Right.
a good buyer.
Yeah.
You're buying a
so-
pig in a poke.
so I think our,
I guess a question, just a minute, what was I going to say? This is in our SHI inventory,
it is,
or our SHI, okay, already. So we want to keep it in. So I agree. I mean, after talking this through, I just wanted to think it through. Yeah, I agree. We should just hold off until we get a little bit more information on
okay.
interest.
So I'll let HLC know
Okay.
that that we'd like to be kept apprised of the marketing effort and where they are in the process, and that we would, you know, if there's a need to protect the property and the affordability status, okay. If there's a need to protect the affordability status, that we would then look to take action at our December meeting,
Yeah,
you know. And of course, if something came up, emergency, urgent situation, we can always try to find the 48-hour window to gather together again, okay? So next up is the first-time homebuyers program,
It's,
but we're already running late.
yeah.
So just a quick update there. I would, I've reached out to Metro West Collaborative Development to talk about the program and to see if it's something, what it would look like from a cost standpoint if they were to provide the administration for it, so that we could engage with them or put it out to bid or do something as we move forward. What I would suggest is if everyone could read the program discussion and put in comments or red lines and send it to Kate and I over the next couple weeks, we can consolidate those comments and we can have the discussion at our next meeting and then be ready to move forward.
Okay.
Ed, can we move community development block grant to the next meeting?
Just very quickly, we can, and the only problem is I've signed up for the training class, you know, which is how to, and I have a lot of documents I have to go through. It's a 40-page document about the application, but the training session's at 8 a.m. on the 8th, which would be our next meeting. So
Okay, we'll look for an alternate date for our next meeting.
maybe we push it to the 15th. That way, I'd be able to report on
the 8th
the
is a Friday.
status.
December 8th.
Oh, wait a minute. You're right. Good point. I'm looking at my calendar and I'm getting the columns confused. Yes,
Okay.
it is the 8th. So not a problem then. It'll be the day after our meeting, but you know, for the FY 24
Okay.
program.
Cool. Okay, great.
But we're making good progress on. I mean, you know, we're getting in the queue and things. So, and it is appropriate in a couple of cases in the work we're looking to do to be able to tap that HUD money.
Okay. Sounds good.
Possible.
So next on the agenda is appointing a representative to the Community Preservation Committee.
I have to.
Yeah, this was.
You-
I was willing.
Can you wait till Hank gets back so we still report? Okay.
Yeah, I was wondering about the quorum. How many do we need for a quorum?
We have 3.
3.
Okay, all right, so, okay.
So, really quickly, does this need to be done today, Ed?
But it doesn't have to be. It's basically. I was hoping it would just be a quick vote. I had said I'm willing to be the rep.
Do you want to make?
Oh,
a-
I'll make a motion that Ed's our rep. I made a motion to have Ed be our rep on the CPA committee. Would you like to second that?
Fine by me.
All right.
Okay, Hank seconds. Roll call vote. Hank?
Roush, yes.
Storm, yes.
Edinburgh, yes. Ed?
Bain, yes. And Alan, you just need to send a note, quick email to Debbington Town Clerk, saying that, you know, as of this meeting, et cetera, it was voted that Ed will
Yep.
be
Excellent.
representative, so that way I can be sworn in.
Okay, great. That was the last item on our agenda. A motion
Yep.
to,
A motion to adjourn.
So
Second.
moved.
Storm, yes.
Roush,
Bain,
yes.
yes.
Edinburgh, yes. Thank you very much, Westborough TV.
All right.
TV, thank you.